Hello everyone, Jeff here for Respawn Studios, back with episode 3 of Meet Your Maker. I'm sorry if you see any of the anti-aliasing lines for my HD webcam stuff. I've been toying with settings and I just cannot get it perfect for now, but hopefully it's still watchable. Okay, so it's now basically 1 month exactly from the Xbox One coming out, and I've decided now that the Xbox 360 is basically now not going to become obsolete. They're still going to make games for it. They're still going to have servers and everything. But just because it's the end of the system in terms of the next generation coming out, I've decided to make my list of the top 20 games of Xbox 360. Now, I toyed with the idea of doing like a top 20 of all systems, but I only had the PS3 and Wii for a little while. I've only played a couple awesome PC games because my laptop can't handle probably most of them. So I just stuck with what I play the most. Xbox 360. If you don't know anything at all, yes, of course, this list is my opinions, but that's why opinions are great. We all have different ones. You might hate some of these. You might have never heard of some of them. But I've worked at GameStop off and on for like 7 or 8 years. I read and I'm subscribed to a bunch of different video game magazines. My gamer score is over 151,000. I've played like 300 different games on the system, so I think I'm pretty well aware, or have played pretty much every game on 360. So I count these as educated opinions, but again, feel free to list your favorites in the comments or say, oh, I never heard of that game, maybe I'll check it out, whatever you want to say. But okay, here we go. I'm not going to try and make the video too long. I'm just going to say a little bit about each game. So number 20 is Far Cry 3. Now, I hadn't played any of the other Far Cries, just because, I don't know, it sounded kind of weird to me. I kind of heard mixed things. I thought it was mostly a PC series. I saw, of course, that there were two on 360 before Far Cry 3, but I don't know, it just didn't kind of sound like my thing on an island with hunting. But Far Cry 3, it sounded different, and I really like the idea of this crazy antagonist. And from the trailers and previews, the commercials, it looked kind of awesome. So I got it, and I basically didn't play anything else for the next 3-4 weeks. It was awesome. I was really, really surprised. It has some of the best voice acting of the last couple years for sure. But more than that, it's just enjoyable. It's nothing like blowing any other game out of the water in like any certain aspect. The graphics are impressive. The voice acting is good. The gameplay is varied. The length of the game is pretty good. I think I beat it in around 20 hours. But yeah, it's set up, I guess if you don't know anything about it, it's kind of like a sandbox game in that you can really go anywhere you want on the set of islands. And you have like sort of side missions and things like you would have in a sort of Grand Theft Auto game. But it's on a tropical island. You play as a just normal guy and his group of friends that are captured and are attacked. So you don't have like superhuman abilities. You don't know how to like use every gun in the world. So kind of like that survival aspect about it. But yeah, I guess for the sake of time, I'll just save the really long-winded things for the top games. But Far Cry 3, number 20. So Magna Carta 2. Now, this is where you've probably never heard of this game. I never heard of this game, but I saw that a game called Magna Carta 2 was coming out when I worked at GameStop. I saw it in the like upcoming games, so I looked it up. I saw it was like a traditional style RPG, so cool. I hadn't really played many of them on 360. I played Tales of Vesperia, which was really, really good, but I decided to give this a try. I think it came out in like the spring of 2011, maybe. And there weren't really any other games at that time, I think, that I liked, so I got it. And it was another game that just surprised me. I loved everything about it. To me, it was like the best Japanese-style RPG on the system. I mean, there's a couple other RPGs that are higher up, but to me, in like sort of traditional RPG style with... and it doesn't have a traditional like turn-based combat system. It's nothing like that. It is... you like hit, I think, left trigger to go into combat mode, but then you just hit the buttons like normal combat, like a third-person game. But the story was really, really good. It was across multiple discs. I think it took me like 34 hours or something to beat it. So there's a lot to it. It's a game where you have kind of sort of like the character stereotypes you might know from like traditional RPGs, but they're really done well, and I think it's a really smart story. It's a plot that has twists that are actually good and interesting and make you care and feel about these characters and what's happening to them. So I think it was most impressive in how it captured like your attention, really made you want to find out where the story was going. Um, the gameplay again was nothing like revolutionary, but it just an enjoyable experience, and I very much recommend if you like RPGs tracking down Magna Carta 2. All right, 18 is Bioshock 2. Now, originally I spent a long time putting this list together. Originally I had Bioshock, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite all here. I decided to not have the first Bioshock, as amazing as it is. Um, and a lot of people I know didn't really like Bioshock 2. They said, oh, it's not as good as the first one. To me, it was better. The story was really, really good. I'd say the story mode, this central campaign, was not quite as good as the first game. Okay. But then the DLC for it, Minerva's Den, is one of the like top 3 DLCs for any game ever. It was phenomenal. It had the real emotional attachment to the central character, the guy that was trying to get his family out. It was great. And then on top of that, they tried multiplayer, which obviously Bioshock didn't have before or since. But to me, that was a mistake because Bioshock 2's multiplayer was amazing. I didn't like the traditional like Team Slayer stuff. I don't think that worked too well. But they came up with a game mode that was pretty unique called Capture the Sister, which is sort of like Capture the Flag in that it's like one-sided Capture the Flag. You have to get a sister, bring her to certain vents that she could then escape out of. But to protect her, the side that's on defense, one of the people randomly spawn as a Big Daddy. You can be killed and then you become a regular character. But as the Big Daddy, you have obviously a lot of health, you do a lot of damage, and it was really strategic and fun. You didn't just capture the sister once, you can get it as many times as you could, and I think like a 5-minute time limit. It switched back and forth. There were 2 offense, 2 defense rounds, I believe was how it was. And it was just so much fun. It was unique. You could still use some plasmids, but nothing felt broken. It was actually really balanced, and I really, really enjoyed it. I don't even know if the servers are still up. I'm not sure if they are. If they are, the population was never that great after the first couple months, but I still played it. There was another DLC where it let you prestige, I guess, if you know the Call of Duty system. You could reset your rank and go up to 50 again, so I started that. And for a while, I was in like the top 500 stats for like kills and things as Big Daddy, so that was cool. I loved it. All right, so moving on. Number 17 is Catherine. It's a very, very bizarre game if you've never heard of it. You play as a guy named Vincent who is having these strange nightmares. And so he goes to a bar where he normally meets with his friends, gets drinks after work. And this girl comes in named Catherine with a C. And throughout, it's kind of strange. It goes back and forth. You learn that your actual girlfriend's name is Catherine with a K. And she has brown hair. She has a very different personality than this Catherine with a C. And you have a lot of morality choices. The nightmare levels become these grand, very difficult puzzles. It's known as one of the most difficult games. You're probably going to die a couple hundred times. But that's why you get a lot of continues. It really makes you think and work hard and quickly. And I guess to describe it the best way I can, it's set up into like 2 halves. Half of it is the nightmare puzzle, like main gameplay sequence. The other half is at the bar, or like cutscenes where you make moralistic choices. You could talk to people at the bar, get drinks, listen to the jukebox. You could send text messages. It's kind of normal story development things. And it was just unique and very entertaining in that it was different, but it still had a story that made you care. But I guess the big appeal of it is that it's so unusual. And it's just something I think was one of the standout games to me. Not only because it was different, but because the puzzles were so good, because the story was really interesting and dark, and I love horror games, and I don't know, I guess I just loved it a lot more than other games. So yeah, moving on. Number 16, Assassin's Creed. I love the series, but I think there was a couple major flaws in some of them. Like the first one, it was just the same. I of course they were like feeling themselves out. It was just the first time they tried this series, but it was too formulaic. Listen to this conversation, steal this document, and then assassinate this guy. Rinse and repeat. Assassin's Creed 3, no. I know I'm like in the minority, but I think the naval stuff sucked, and it had one of the worst endings ever. And Connor was just unrelatable and no. Revelations was okay. Brotherhood was pretty good. I like the introduction of that system. But what is actually here, number 16 on my list, is Assassin's Creed 2. To me, that was the pinnacle of the series. No multiplayer, none of that crap, even though it was enjoyable in some certain modes. But Assassin's Creed 2, it was just great. The open world gameplay, the assassin aspect of it, the story, I think everything just fit well together. And if you haven't played any of the Assassin's Creed games, I first suggest you play 1 just to maybe get an idea, but there's no problem if you just start with 2, because that to me is the best game, and it's a different assassin you play as, so you might as well. So Assassin's Creed 2, yes. I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm sure that's one of the most popular series in the world, so I think I already gave my little spiel, but Assassin's Creed 2, yes, number 16. Now, number 15. If you've known me for any of my other videos, you know that Halo is far and away my favorite multiplayer series. I could not care less, though, about the story modes. I just never got into the characters or what was going on. I played the campaigns to death. Believe me, I have all of the achievements in ODST, all of the achievements in Halo 3, pretty much every achievement in Halo 3 and Halo 4. But what comes on the list right here is Halo 3. And why? Because the multiplayer was pretty much perfect. I know a lot of people have different opinions. My opinion is that Halo 1's multiplayer was horrendously awful back then and now. I don't know why so many people are like nostalgic saying it was perfect. No. The pistol was all you need, and that's stupid. No. Halo 3 was awesome. Yeah, the power drainer and bubble shield are kind of ridiculous, but they also made these little cool strategic moments as well. The competitive settings were great. The MLG playlist, now that they made the game for free on Xbox Live, I think till the end of October, so grab it if you don't already have it, is already back up to over 1,000 players because people really enjoyed Halo 3. The audience for Halo 4 has been going down and down and down, and now that Halo 3 is free, and people are realizing that, oh, we could go back and play that. I think it's getting pretty even now. It might even pass Halo 4 in the next couple weeks as more people get the free Halo 3. So definitely check that out. The servers are still up. You can still experience the multiplayer. The campaign is still enjoyable, but the multiplayer is just great. There's a variety of game modes. There's ranked and unranked. It's very fair in assessing your skill, so you always find people that are actually appropriate to how you want to play the game, whether it's just casual, whether you want to do custom games, all of that is there for you. Okay, but if you want any more of my ideas on Halo, feel free to look at like the hundreds of other videos I have on Halo. Now, number 14, Saints Row 4. Yes, I know some people might not have played it. They think it's like some cheap ripoff of Grand Theft Auto. I thought that maybe with the first game, that they're trying to just make like a more outlandish Grand Theft Auto. Saints Row 2 was okay, but then with Saints Row 3, the series just found itself. It's so funny. It really is Grand Theft Auto taken to like 100,000% of like ridiculousness. It's over the top. There's tons of like fart jokes. There's crazy alien things. They like work in all kinds of absurd things, but it makes a really enjoyable experience. And both in 3 and the game here on the list at 14, Saints Row 4 is fully co-op. So you can play the whole campaign with someone else, which is great. And I played both games totally by myself, and then I played a little co-op as well. It's just so much fun. The story is, again, it's not really the important part. It's really over the top. It's going to make you laugh a lot. It doesn't take itself seriously. It makes fun of itself. It makes fun of its own characters. There's an actual actor playing the actor, and they all look up to him. He's like the vice president. It's crazy. So play the game. if you like Grand Theft Auto and haven't really played any other games or really given them a shot, definitely check out Saints Row series. 1 and 2 are okay, but they kind of get your feet wet for the series. But 3 and 4 are awesome. 3 was great, and I think 4 with the ridiculous superpowers like jumping higher than the skyscrapers like times 3 and running super fast make it just perfect. Perfect in its how much fun it is, I guess. It's just one of the most enjoyable experiences you can have, I think. Using the superpowers, just running around the city doing whatever, listening to random radio stations, it's just fun. Okay, now moving on, the Saboteur at 13. Now this is another Grand Theft Auto. I guess Grand Theft Auto isn't really like a fair label. It's a sandbox game, but most people know Grand Theft Auto like as the best of that. So I'll use that as the point of reference. It's an open world game, but it's in World War II settings with Nazi-controlled cities. It's actually in Paris, so France, and it's great. It's really, 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 really impressive. It's a game that didn't really get the best reviews. It didn't sell that well. I just got it because it was under $20 and I was looking to get achievements. And maybe it's because I had low expectations, but for whatever it was, I just could not stop playing it. I was telling everyone in the world to get it. One of my best friends, Gino, got it, and he absolutely loved it. It's great. You start with black and white portions of the city, and then when you free them from Nazi control by doing all kinds of really well balanced and varied missions, they become illuminated. They get the color, which is cool. And I don't know really what else I could say. It is a lot like Grand Theft Auto in that the cars, the radio are there, but given the World War II setting, obviously there's a lot of other bigger things on the line here. And it's a really fine story. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but definitely check out Saboteur if you're into those kinds of games. And it's kind of different than the normal. It's not sort of over the top in the same way. It's more realistic, and it's like kind of sabotage missions. That's why it's called Saboteur. You play a sort of thief. But yeah, it's great. Okay, now getting into the heavy hitters, I'd say these top 12 were unquestioned. I was never not going to have any of these on the list, so let's go. I don't think I need to say anything about some of these, but I will. Number 12 is Fallout 3. If you don't know the Fallout series, you need to. They started on other systems. Fallout 3 was the first one on 360. And it still stands, even though it's, Jesus, maybe 6 years old at least. It's amazing still. It still looks pretty good, but the gameplay is what gets everyone. It's a first-person open-world game. You can... I'm sorry. Jeez. Sorry, I'm like choking on something. You can play in third person, but it doesn't look or play nearly as well to me. But maybe it's different on PC, but I'm, again, talking about 360. But it's an apocalyptic game in that it takes place in the future where it's called Fallout because there's been nuclear fallout from nuclear warfare, which has devastated the surface of the Earth and has forced people to live underground in vaults. And to live on the surface, you have to be aware of radiation. And this is now, you escape from your vault, basically. You're finally able to get to the surface. And you're trying to find your father. You're trying to find a solution for people to be able to live on the surface. You're trying to find clear water. So there's a lot of big stakes. But there's also a lot of kind of crazy missions with sort of zombies and the different creatures that have now taken over the surface. So it's a very varied experience, and it's one of the longest games on 360. You could say that. To do everything, it takes you at least 60 plus hours, and I did everything. I have every achievement in that game. It's great. It's also very, very funny. It's a great script, and the voice acting is very, very solid, even for the creatures. The voice actors for them really bring them to life. It's very, very enjoyable. And there are either 4 or 5 story-based DLCs. Again, it's only a single-player game. But they are all excellent. They are all worth it. So I very highly recommend Fallout 3 if you like RPGs or first-person games, because it's a good fusion of both. All right, now, Metro Last Light, and I know I said this would be maybe a short video, but obviously it's probably not. We're only up to 11. But I hope you hang on. Feel free to like skip. I might try and put, yeah, I'll probably put timestamps. We'll see for the different numbers if you care about that, and I'll list them in the description of the video. But if you made it to this point, you're probably just gonna watch the whole thing. But number 11 is Metro Last Light. Now, this is another game you might not have heard of. They did advertise it better than Metro 2033. Metro 2033 was an actual novel written by a Russian novelist about another kind of. This is weird that it's kind of followed up Fallout 3 in the same way Saboteur followed up Saints Row, in that Metro Last Light and Metro 2033 are about a like apocalyptic setting where the surface is again very messed up and people are forced to live in subway systems under Russia. But it's a lot crazier than that. I'll let you experience it yourself. Obviously, it takes place in the year 2033, but you play as a guy that's kind of an outcast, but you're trying to make it the world livable again. You're trying to bring peace to all of the warring factions, people fighting over supplies. And it's just a very smart series. Metro 2033 was good. It was pretty short. Metro Last Light is also pretty short, but it takes all of the good elements of 2033 and refines them even better. It has some of the best characters and cutscenes, and I don't know, it just makes you feel the story. Even the like very bizarre, like horror creature elements of it are very, very intelligently done. And I teach English at a college level. I read tons of different books. So I'm into like literature and story stuff, and Metro Last Light knocks it out of the park with their storytelling. It's very smart. It's very well done. It's a first-person game. It has a lot of first-person shooter elements, but there are also achievements to beat the game without killing anyone. So you really choose how to play the game. It's very varied that way, and it really allows for those different play styles. And it's cool to try one way and then maybe play the game and try the complete opposite. So it gives you that challenge. But yeah, great Metro Last Light. All right, so we made it to our top 10. So here we go. 10 is Dead Space 2. If I've never, I don't think I've told anyone the stories of my trials of Dead Space. I never played the first game. I was living in Vermont for 2 years for graduate school, and it was another springtime. Maybe this was the spring of 2011 or 2010, probably 2010. And this game, Dead Space 2, had come out a couple days before, and I was kind of bored. I didn't have anything to do. We're kind of early in the semester, and I was looking for a game to play. So Dead Space 2, okay, horror, I'll give it a shot, because I love horror. And the first 15 minutes of that game are 15 of like the best minutes of any game of this generation. If you are not sure what Dead Space plays like or feels like or looks like, look up like a gameplay, just playthrough. Don't listen to people talk or scream like idiots. Look up a playthrough of the first 15 minutes of Dead Space 2. And if you don't love it, well, okay, maybe it's not your kind of game, but I'm pretty sure you're going to love it. It's just phenomenal. It's scary as hell. It's a third-person game, but the sound, the lighting, the graphics, they're all top-notch. And it just is a very engrossing world. It's another futuristic thing, kind of aliens, creatures. It's about space. That's why it's called Dead Space. You work on repairing ships. But there's a big overarching story about these artifacts and the creatures called necromorphs and kind of the relation between them. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of leave it there because it is kind of a mysterious, fun part of the game is finding out what the hell is actually going on. What can you do? What's the story? But yeah, Dead Space 2, number 10. All right, number 9. Of course, this has to be in every top 10, no matter what. No. But yeah, number 9, Mass Effect. The first Mass Effect. I know a lot of people, including myself, were shocked and outraged by the absolute stupidity and letdown of the ending of the trilogy. The end of Mass Effect 3 is like a slap in the face, like everything you did in the series didn't mean anything. But that aside, Mass Effect 1, the level of quality of Mass Effect 1 and 2 are why people were so mad about the end of Mass Effect 3. Because the way that they introduce conversations and how you can choose things, how you could read people's facial expressions, it's out of this world. It's so smart. It's so good. It really makes you care and feel about these characters in this world, as fantasy and crazy sci-fi as it is. You just really get engrossed in this world. All of your choices matter on what happens in the story. It's very, very good. It's a third-person action RPG, and it's just great. The soundtrack is fantastic. There are varied planets you can go to. The story has a lot of twists and ends and picks up and has the excellent Mass Effect 2 and the very good Mass Effect 3 minus the ending. Mass Effect 1 also has a couple good DLCs, but I'm just going to really talk about that main campaign as being, in and of itself, one of the best things that they made for Xbox 360. There's a demo for it probably, and the game itself I think is only $20 from Games on Demand, so get it if you don't have it or if you've never played it. Definitely try and give it a shot, at least to the demo, but you're probably going to want to buy it. It's very, very engrossing. Okay, moving on. Number 8, Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. For Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was great. It was also came out like a month after launch, so it was quite dated. It took them a long time to make 5, but everyone was obviously satisfied with the results. It got a lot of Game of the Year, technical awards, a lot of different things. And justifiably so. It's freaking amazing. The graphics, they are good, but it's such a big world. At times, they're not the most impressive things. I did make a series called The Beauty Of, and I have a Beauty of Skyrim video if you ever want to see. The graphics are good, but that's not the selling point. The selling point, as with a lot of these games, you see I'm a story and character, like level of involvement, suspension of disbelief guy. That's where the game gets you. Not only that, with good characters and plot and story, but the variety. You can do like anything. You can adopt children. You can decorate a house. You could design blacksmith armor. You can go hunting. You could kill things. You could just explore the huge world for hours. It's awesome. You could just walk around the towns. The AI is really good. It's great. I mean, it's just one of the biggest, best realized game worlds. It feels like what a fantastic video game should be, because it does so many different things and it does them all well. So if you want a very big, varied, great experience, definitely check out the Elder Scrolls series. And Skyrim, again, I don't think I really need to say anything else. You've probably heard about it, or you know people that have played it to death, and I'm one of those. It's great. Okay, number 7, the game that a lot of you probably know me for if you're watching this. This is how our channel actually became big. My Silent Hill Downpour videos. Now, I know a lot of people think, oh, Silent Hill sucks after Silent Hill 2 and 3 on PS2. No, you're an idiot. Just, no, that's my opinion, no. Silent Hill 2 and 3, of course, they're awesome. Awesome. But Silent Hill Homecoming and Downpour are way better games. No more fixed camera angles, no more of that crap. Yeah, maybe they're not as survival hard as some people, but they're very scary. They're very, very well made. They're short as hell, especially Downpour. I mean, that's, I guess, the big flaw. You could beat Downpour once you beat it the first time. You could probably beat it again in like 2.5 hours. Oh God, I'm never going to play this game. No. Those couple hours are so good. The characters, again, as I always like to say, they're fantastic. And if you don't know the Silent Hill series, it's about people that are drawn to this town called Silent Hill because they have done something horrible in their lives, and this town forces you to confront your fears. It like makes these levels and creatures and things, the elements, are your worst nightmares. You're forced to confront all of the bad you've done in your life, and you try and fix it or see if you can't live with it, and you should probably die. So it's very, very serious in its themes, and Downpour is no different. You play as Murphy Pendleton. He is a guy who is in jail for the alleged murder of his son, but you find out through flashbacks throughout the story, maybe that's not the case. So you find out why he still was perhaps drawn to Silent Hill. What did he do wrong to get him there then? And it's just great. It's a more traditional game in that there is combat, but it's a lot about exploration, doing classic puzzles, horror things, going through places, finding like that key, that note, and trying to solve puzzles, get to the next area. It's trying to survive more so than fight. And again, there's an achievement to not kill any creatures in the game, so that's cool. But yeah, if you need to know any more about Silent Hill Downpour, check out my tons of different videos. I have the full walkthrough up. I have all the side quest guides and things like that. But I think I've said enough about that. So now, number 6, Grand Theft Auto 5. Okay, so I don't think there really needs to be anything else said. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the fastest selling video game in history. It's shattered like the 7 big Guinness records in terms of sales, online statistics, etc., etc. It's great. Just play it. I haven't even touched the online, and I don't even think I want to. The campaign itself is great. So I'm just going to leave it there. Okay. 5. Now, the big 5. And oddly enough, it starts with a 5. Number 5 for me is Resident Evil 5. Now, again, I know, here we go. The guy that loves horror. I know a lot of people, for some reason, were turned off with Silent Hill, with the new games that weren't made by Konami. Same thing with Resident Evil. When it changed from its kind of survival horror roots to a more action-oriented game with Resident Evil 4, and then they kept that sort of theme with Resident Evil 5. But the reason I think Resident Evil 5 is the pinnacle of the Resident Evil series, obviously that's why it's the 5th best game of like hundreds, if not thousands of games on 360, is the campaign, again, can be beaten once you've mastered it in like 3 hours. But it has so much to it, and it could all be done co-op. There's lots of different challenges, there's lots of variety. So the first time you play it, there are things that are scary, there are things that are dark, of course, but then it becomes fun in doing it in co-op, trying to find what you missed, finding all of the jewels, doing all of the challenges, getting all of the weapons. And then the DLCs for it, Lost in Nightmares is one of the other, I know I mentioned the top 3 DLCs with Minerva's Den for Bioshock 2. The Lost in Nightmares DLC for Resident Evil 5 is one of those other top 3 DLCs of the entire length of Xbox 360. It's the more traditional Resident Evil in that it's survival. There's only a couple enemies total in the like hour-and-a-half long DLC. It's in the mansion from the original Resident Evils. If you ever played like even like the GameCube game that was just called Resident Evil, it's that. And it's really, really good. It's very scary. You don't even encounter an enemy for, I think, the first like 20-something minutes. But it really makes you on edge. You're not sure where they're going to come out of. You're not sure when something's going to happen. And it brings that spirit back. There's another DLC. I'm not sure exactly what it was called, but it's the more action-oriented, lots of enemies, lots of intense action. And I think that's what Resident Evil 5 also does well. Yes, it gets away from just one zombie at a time being like the worst thing because you only have a couple bullets. But I think Resident Evil 5 and these action-oriented Resident Evils are great because they have like 20 or more enemies attacking you at once. Some are normal zombies, some are bigger types, and that makes it overwhelming and scary and difficult. And you have to plan, you have to bring different gameplay elements to the table. And it's, again, much more fun and entertaining in co-op, which is a great experience. But yeah, I think that's really all I need to say. I know Resident Evil 5 really sold well, despite people saying, oh, the series is going off its rocker. But I think there's also a demo up for that. And I think that also could be found pretty cheap now. So if you haven't experienced Resident Evil 5, do it. It's a short game, but it's one of the best. It's so enjoyable while still being kind of scary and dark. Number 4, the game that I'm playing every day of my life for the past like 2 months, Borderlands 2. Now, I, like everyone else in the world, caught the Borderlands buzz when it started selling like crazy when the first one came out. I got it a week after the first one came out, and I loved it. So I was very hyped, there we go, using that term. But yeah, I was very much looking forward to Borderlands 2. And At first, yeah, I liked it. I played it a lot. I got my character to like level 30 something, but then I probably didn't play it for a few months. But then the first DLC came out, and I remembered why the series is so awesome. The fan service is out of this world. The DLCs are not just good, they're great. And why are they great? They catered to things that fans wanted. They know the characters that fans liked. They constantly, if you have a free Shift account, they give you codes to unlock more skins, heads for your characters, golden keys to get better weapons. They constantly have little updates and things they add to the game outside of DLCs. Gearbox loves its fans, and they make Borderlands, which is already such a fun co-op experience, better and better and better. They really make a game not only worth its $60, but probably worth a couple hundred for how long they stretch. I'm not going to say stretch out. That sounds like they make it, oh, they do the same thing over and over again. No, they make it great. They make you want to keep playing the same game because they keep adding more and more things that make the game more difficult, add new areas, add new enemies. It's great. They've added 2 other characters that you could play and level up all the way from 50 was the first cap, then a DLC made it up to 61, and then another made it up to 72, and then another one made it so you could do a very difficult challenge and fight level enemies up to level 80. And if you're able to defeat the challenge, you can get level 80 gear that you could use, even though you're only 72. So it's great. It's so much fun. It's cel shaded, which I know is a graphical style some people don't like. I didn't like it at first with like Zelda Wind Waker, but then I realized how good Wind Waker was, so I got over that fact. And yeah, I love cel shaded games. But yeah, it's. I know I've mentioned some other really funny games. Borderlands 2 probably puts them to shame. It's some of the smartest, funniest writing. The characters are over the top, hilarious. Mr. Torg, Tiny Tina. If you don't know who they are, get Borderlands and find them because you will never forget them. Claptrap, of course. But I think again, a lot of people probably know about Borderlands. So I'm going to get to my top 3 games, which have 2 that a lot of people either didn't like or don't know for some reason. So here we go, my top 3. Number 3 is L.A. Noire. Now, a lot of people probably heard that this got reviews, or this is the game published by Rockstar, the Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption company, and they're like, it didn't do that well. There's no sequel. I don't know. It's not Grand Theft Auto. It's set in the 1940s, 50s. So I don't really. No, shut up. Play the game. I love Grand Theft Auto. Obviously, that's why Grand Theft Auto 5, even though it just came out a few weeks ago, is already number 6 on my all-time list for 360 games. But L.A. Noire is so much better than Grand Theft Auto to me. Yeah, there's some like funny things, like if you've ever seen the parody videos of L.A. Noire. I guess first and foremost, if you don't know anything about it, I'll just give you this little context. You play as a police officer for the LAPD, and you're investigating murders. But you start and progress through different levels of the police department. You first start with very simple things, traffic cases, stolen cars, things like that. You work up to, what's after that? Maybe homicide second? No. But there's like patrol, traffic, homicide, vice. I want to say there's one other, but I can't think of it. But you have several cases for each of them. Each case probably takes like an hour and a half or more. The whole game probably takes around 30 hours, not counting all of the side missions collectibles you could do. But it's really good. It's set up like Grand Theft Auto. The map is very similar, though the game was developed by a company called Team Bondi, who's actually from Australia. It was overseen by some of the main guys from Rockstar who published the game, that live in California, obviously, and the guys that make Grand Theft Auto, Dan Houser, those guys. So it has a lot of those elements. The map is very similar. The levels... the level of the story itself, the creativity, the depth of the characters, all of the interweaving storylines is very smart. It works in actual mob figures of the time that it takes place in Los Angeles during the 1950s, with a lot of organized crime, and there's corrupt cops. You're not one of them, but you see that pull, and you're trying to fight all of these different elements. You're trying to find a couple serial killers, murderers, all of these bad people. Meanwhile, you know that there's probably these other mob guys out to get you. You know there's some corrupt cops, And trying to keep all of that balanced is very intense, but it also makes it very enjoyable. All of the iconic locations of Los Angeles are there. It's just a very good game. It's another sandbox game. It's like Grand Theft Auto, as I've said a lot. But it's a whole new setting, like Saboteurs. It puts that formula and plays with some of its ideas in a different setting, in a different way. It adds some unique elements. It's just awesome. It has one of the best stories, I think, that they created for any game on Xbox 360. So I very much recommend LA Noire. Check it out. That's definitely only $20 or so, or you might be able to find it cheaper online, because I know some people hated it. They probably didn't really give it a chance. Because the first hour I know is kind of typical and maybe a little boring, because you're getting a lot of cutscenes. You're doing like the typical traffic cases. You're trying to work your way to like the serial murders, the big cases, the very intense stuff. But it's worth it. The journey is great. Okay, number 2. So we finally are nearing the end here. BioShock Infinite. Now, I know this is another recent game. It came out earlier this year. Obviously, this would be my game of the year because Grand Theft Auto 5 also came out this year. And I think BioShock Infinite is way better. But again, that's my opinion. I'm more into games like that. As I've told you, I love the whole BioShock series. But like a lot of people, I was worried that they took the game out of Rapture, the underwater. It was set out to be a utopia, but as with most ideal utopias, they end up being dystopias. And instead of the first 2 games, which took place down in Rapture, this third game takes place about 50 years before that, and it takes place in a city in the sky called Columbia that got away from the World's Fair. He plays different characters. There's a lot of new elements. Sure, the graphics and some of the things are similar in keeping like the BioShock, I guess, theme or aesthetic going. But it's unique in a lot of ways. The weapons are very unique. The story, there's some magic elements. So I'm not going to spoil it too much if you don't know a lot about it. But it's so good. I don't want to spoil anything. It's just out of this world. Literally, it's up in the sky. There's a lot of fantasy elements, even though it is set in like the 1911, I want to say. But yeah, I have a full playthrough of me doing that. So if you don't know anything else about that, I suggest watching part 1 of that. I have the full collectible guide. It's another game that there's no multiplayer. It's all about the unforgettable journey through the single player. It does probably only take about 12 to 15 hours to beat, but you'll never forget or regret those 12 to 15 hours. It's so good. But yeah, again, I know a lot of these are the more popular games like BioShock Infinite. You probably know about it. I'm pretty sure there's also a demo for that. They are also going to release 2 DLCs. They already released one, but it was just like challenges. That's not really a DLC to me. They're releasing 2 big single-player challenges, DLCs, that take place in Rapture, actually, the location from the first 2 games. And so many people, including myself, are excited for that. And those will probably be some of the other top 3 DLCs on the system. They'll maybe push the others down or be in the top 10. So BioShock Infinite, number 2, there we go. All right, so we've arrived. It's taken us 43 minutes, but here we are at number 1. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, again, if you know me at all. Number 1, it's surprising if you don't, if you are here expecting like another Grand Theft Auto or a big franchise. No. Number 1 is Alan Wake. Okay, yes, of course I love horror. That's why I had Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Catherine, I guess is horror. A lot of different horror games on here. Alan Wake, I was so excited about. It was announced several years before it came out. And maybe the game wasn't even like fully realized what they were going to do yet. It was potentially going to be a launch title for Xbox 360, but it didn't come out for several years after that. What year did it come out in? 2009? I want to say. But okay. Alan Wake, for anyone that doesn't know about it, because I know it didn't sell that well, but I hope to God they make a sequel, because obviously it's, to me, the best video game ever made. So I guess there's my big statement. To me, Alan Wake isn't just the best game on Xbox 360, it's my all-time favorite video game. It finally beat out the Nintendo 64 Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And I know a lot of people like Ocarina of Time better, but to me Majora's Mask is my favorite game before that. Um, I guess not before that, it came out afterward. I don't know why I just said before. But before Alan Wake, Majora's Mask was my favorite game of all time for years and years and years. But now Alan Wake is there. And why? Okay, so here we go. I want to talk a lot about Alan Wake. I'll try and keep the video under 50 minutes. All right, so I have like 5 minutes. But here we go. You play as, oh my god, you guessed it, Alan Wake. So what is the game? You play as a writer, a novelist of mystery slash horror books. You've had a couple bestsellers, but you haven't written anything for a couple years because you've kind of become an alcoholic and you just can't think of anything. So your wife suggests that you go on a vacation to this remote town in Washington State to potentially just get away from it all and maybe start writing again, make some more money, help her out. But you find out she kind of has an ulterior motive that you are hinted at from the very beginning of the game, that there is a not a mental institution, but like a sort of therapy place to help struggling artists get back on track. So that's kind of her ulterior motive. She wants to help you help yourself to maybe get rid of your own personal demons and get back to being a writer. Like, oh, that's like gay. It sounds like a soap opera. No, it's so awesome. Immediately, you start the game playing in a nightmare, and you see one of your characters, a hitchhiker with an axe, has come to life, and he kills someone, and everything goes crazy. There are elements of light and dark is one of the big things in the whole game. The game is separated into 5 main chapters. They have daytime sequences for the most part, and then the nighttime sequences where everything is messed up and horrible because the darkness has taken over. And you find this town is not only a nice vacation spot, it's famous for having this mysterious death of another writer before. And you find, I'm not going to spoil anything, hopefully, that there are definite magical elements to this town, supernatural things that go back into its history, and you're trying to find out what the hell they actually are and how it might help you escape, get out of this place. Because early on in the game, you find you can't just leave. There are a lot of things. The first chapter, the first part of the game, your wife is taken by the darkness, you think. You're not sure where the hell she went. She seems to have drowned. That's not a spoiler. That happens in like the first half hour of the game. Hopefully that's not going to ruin it for you. But your wife is gone, and you have to find what the hell is going on, how you can fix things. You find you've blacked out for a week also in the first half hour. So you're like, whoa, what? What is happening? So the game is very dark, very scary. You start finding manuscript pages that you apparently wrote during that week you had blacked out. And they have things like a chainsaw wielding maniac in the forest that you encounter. It's nuts. It's so good. The graphics are pretty darn good still. They hold up. But again, if you have listened to all of this, I'm about the characters and the plot and the story. And Alan Wake does them to perfection. It is so smart. The story is so good. The gameplay is just yes, it's a horror game. Yes, things might freak you out or disturb you, but at the end of the day, it's also enjoyable. We want to find out how to help these people, how to defeat the bad guys, and it's a very cool journey. The other DLC for those top 3 DLCs are combined the 2 big Alan Wake DLCs, The Signal and The Writer. They're follow-up direct story-related chapters. They're great. They are so cool. They're both only about an hour long, but they're literally like more parts to the main campaign. Not that they left anything out, but it's like additional things to flesh out ideas and themes and storylines. It's just excellent. You could probably beat the whole game. Again, the first time it'll probably take you 10 to 12 hours. After that, it might take you around 6 to 8. If you do like a speed run, you skip a lot of things, you could probably do it in 4, but that's probably true with a lot of games. But it's so good. there is combat, but it's more again about surviving. You're not like a born fighter. You're a writer. So there's like the survival horror elements there as well. It's just fantastic. If you have never played Alan Wake, but you like good stories, or you like action games, or you like mysteries, get it now. All right, so I guess that'll do it. That'll wrap it up. Those are my favorite 20 games on the Xbox 360. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you for Xbox One videos starting in about a month.